this video, I'm going to show you 10 Webflow productivity tips that allow you to build your websites much faster. The first tip that I would like to show you is the advanced Quick Finder. Most of you already know the normal Quick Finder that you can open by pressing Ctrl E or Command E on Mac. And then you can type out the name of an element, for example, paragraph, click Enter, and then the element is added to the page. The cool thing about this Quick Finder is that it has this settings icon right here on the right. And inside of this dropdown, you can activate the advanced Quick Finder actions. Let's quickly do that. And once you've done that, you can navigate your entire Webflow project with this Quick Finder. Let me show you. For example, I can type out the name of an element that is somewhere on the page, like this button element. I can hit Enter. And Webflow automatically scrolls to that element and selects it. You can even use this advanced Quick Finder to navigate to a different page inside your project, just by typing out the name of the page, for example, pricing. Then you hit Enter, and Webflow automatically navigates to the new page, in this case, the pricing page. Let's type out home to navigate back to the home page, and Webflow navigates back to the home page. And you can use this advanced Quick Finder to open your CMS. Just by typing out the name of a CMS collection. For example, testimonials is my CMS collection. I hit Enter and the Quick Finder automatically opens the CMS. How cool is that? Tip number 2 is something that has only been possible for a few weeks, and that is the wrapping shortcuts. Down here in my footer section, I have these social media icons right here. Right now they are only SVG icons, so I cannot click on them. To make them clickable, I have to wrap them inside of a link block. In the past, the way you would have to do that is you would have had to add a link block to the page, then drag the link block to the right position, and then put the icon inside of the link block. You can forget about all of that because now you can achieve that with a single shortcut. And the shortcut is Ctrl, Alt and A, or Command, Option and A on Mac. You hit this shortcut, and then the element is automatically wrapped inside of a link block. If you want to wrap an element inside of a normal div block instead of a link block, you can do that with a very similar shortcut, and that is Ctrl, Alt and G or Command, Option and G on Mac. When you press that shortcut, the element is automatically wrapped inside of a div block. Tip number 3 is the manual backup strategy, and this will not only save you a lot of time, but also quite a lot of headaches. If you want to make a big change to an existing Webflow project, what you should always do is you should save a manual backup, and there is no excuse for not doing that, because it only takes 2 or 3 seconds. Webflow even has a shortcut for that, and that shortcut is Ctrl Shift and S or Command Shift and S on Mac. And when you hit that shortcut, this dialog opens up where you can give your backup a name. I usually name it something like before change XYZ, XYZ, then I hit Enter, and now I'm protected. And that is so important because when you make a big change to an existing Webflow project, and that change ends up breaking something, or it doesn't work out like you thought it would work out, then you don't want to find yourself in a situation where you have to hammer Ctrl Z 500 times on your keyboard, hoping that you can undo all of your changes. Webflow offers this feature to you. It doesn't cost you anything, so be smart and use it. Tip number 4 is the Shift and Alt copy spacing trick. If you want to add a spacing value to all sides of an element, what you can do is you can just add the value to one side, for example the left side here, 4.5 rem, and then you click the spacing value, hold your mouse key until the double arrow appears, and then you press your Shift key, and now the value is copied to all of the other sides. If you want to copy a value only to the opposite side, you can do a similar thing. You click the value, hold your mouse key until the double arrow appears, and then you press your Alt key, and then the value is copied only to the opposite side. Tip number 5 is use a component library. See, the reason why it takes you so long to build a Webflow project is because you build everything from scratch. But there is no reason to do that because there are really good component libraries out there. For example, the new Webflow libraries, where you have access to hundreds of high-quality components completely for free. You could also use a paid component library, like I personally do. I use the Reloom library. And you don't have to use these component libraries for every single part of your website. You can only use them for very repetitive and boring components of your websites, like for example the FAQ sections or the footer sections. Usually these type of sections, they don't look that different across websites, and so it doesn't really make sense to implement them from scratch every single time. Instead, you can just leverage one of these component libraries, copy a footer section, and then modify it a little bit so that it matches your style and your design. This way you can save a lot of time and resources for your projects. Tip number 6 is the class naming trick. If you want to add a class to an element, an already existing class, you don't have to type out the entire class name. For example, if I want to add text size medium, the text size medium class to this paragraph, I don't have to type out the entire name, but I can just type out an abbreviation, for example, TXMD. Webflow automatically matches that and displays the corresponding class names. I can just select the correct one, hit enter, and the class is added to the element. Tip number 7 is the focus mode. Lots of people still use Webflow in the default mode, which means you can have lots of different sections of the style panel open at a time. I personally think that is kind of confusing, and whenever I'm in this default mode, I quickly lose track of what's going on inside of an element. That is why whenever I start working on a new Webflow project, I immediately switch it to focus mode, which means only one section inside of the style panel can be open at a time. This has two advantages. First of all, it is super straightforward to switch between the individual sections of the style panel. But the far bigger advantage with the focus mode is that I can select the component and can immediately tell what's going on just by looking at this style panel. As you can see, behind the names of the style panel section, there are these orange and blue dots. And whenever there is an orange or blue dot, it means there are some styles that affect the element in this section. So I can click on the section and immediately see what's going on. Tip number 9, in my opinion, is the most underrated feature that Webflow has. And that is the clonables ecosystem. You have to find a way to leverage the clonables ecosystem. The fact that you can just go and clone all of these projects that other people have made available to you and then use them for your own projects is absolutely mind-blowing and has so much potential. So my recommendation in this case to you is, if you can afford it, get the Webflow agency plan, even if you're just a freelancer working by themselves. Because with the Webflow agency plan, what you can do is you can clone and save unlimited projects inside your account. And I personally, whenever I stumble upon an interesting clonable and interesting project, I immediately save it and clone it to my account, even if I don't have an immediate use case for that. This way, after time, you build up this large library of interesting and high quality projects that you can borrow from for your own projects. And this is another great way of saving a lot of time because you don't have to implement everything from scratch. And that leads me to tip number 10. And then after that, I have a nice bonus tip for you as well. But let's first of all talk about tip number 10. And that is a combination of two shortcuts, closely related shortcuts, that I use about 2 to 3 times per minute whenever I work on a Webflow project. The first shortcut is the Control and Enter shortcut, or Command Enter on Mac. If you press Control Enter, Webflow automatically focuses this style input right here, or this class input right here, and then you can remove a class, or you can add a new class to an element. And the closely related and also quite important shortcut is Control Shift and Enter, or Command Shift and Enter on Mac. When you press that, the current class is highlighted and you can rename it and give it a proper name. This is one of these tips that will only save you 1 or 2 seconds every time you use it, but because you use it so often, multiple times per minute, this quickly adds up and becomes a huge time saver. So definitely incorporate that into your workflow. And that leads me to the bonus tip that I want to give you today. And this bonus tip, if you really understand this and apply it, will save you by far the most amount of time. See, the tips that I gave you so far are productivity tips, which means tips or strategies that allow you to work much faster within Webflow. But productivity is not only about working faster, it is also about deciding what projects you work on. And even more important, deciding on what projects not to work on. If you have a bad feeling about a project, if you have a bad feeling about a client, or you feel like a website project is not a great fit for you, then you should have the courage to say no. There's one important sentence that you have to understand, or if you don't understand it, you have to learn it the hard way. And the sentence is, bad projects are usually worse than having no projects at all. Because a bad project is going to cost you money, time, motivation, and energy. And usually, or even in 99% of the cases, that is just not worth it. And now there's one more final thing that I want to recommend to you. And that is, if you want to take this productivity, this Webflow productivity to the next level, what you can do is you can start to leverage Webflow tools. So software that helps you to work much faster and much more efficient. Fortunately, I have recorded an entire video about Webflow tools, which you can find right here on YouTube. You can click on it and watch it right now. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Mike. Have a nice day.